¿Qué es la Cumbre de las Américas? Cada 3 o 4 años, los líderes electos democráticamente del hemisferio occidental se reúnen para identificar y discutir los desafíos urgentes de la región. Tal vez mucho ha cambiado desde que los Estados Unidos fue la sede de la cumbre en 1994, pero una cosa sigue igual: la necesidad de que los vecinos trabajen juntos. ¿Quién asistirá? El presidente Obama y sus homólogos regionales, los líderes del Estado y del gobierno de todos los 34 países del Norte, Centro y Sudamérica y del Caribe participarán. También las delegaciones de la Organización de los Estados Americanos y grupos observadores de algunas organizaciones interamericanas. ¿Cuándo ocurrirá? La quinta Cumbre de las Américas tendrá lugar del 17 hasta el 19 de abril. Las 4 cumbres anteriores se celebraron en 1994, 1999, 2001 y 2005. ¿Dónde tendrá lugar? La República de la Isla de Trinidad y Tobago será la sede de la cumbre de este año, la primera nación del Caribe que lo hace. ¿Qué es exactamente? La meta de cada cumbre es encontrar soluciones a las preocupaciones comunes y mejorar las vidas de los ciudadanos en todas las Américas. La agenda de este año incluye un enfoque en 3 asuntos críticos: la prosperidad humana, la seguridad de la energía y la sostenibilidad del medio ambiente. Específicamente, los participantes discutirán la recuperación económica y la reducción de la pobreza a la cara de la actual crisis financiera y el cambio del clima. ¿Cómo funciona? Los participantes activos presentarán las preocupaciones y discutirán los desafíos en unas sesiones plenarias. El tercer día, los 34 líderes asistirán a un retiro. A la conclusión de la cumbre, los líderes firmarán una declaración de obligación que sincroniza las resoluciones claves de la reunión. ¿Por qué tener una cumbre de las Américas? La cumbre permite que los países democráticos del hemisferio occidental comprendan los problemas del uno al otro, pero más importante, es una manera para que un vecino ayude a su vecino en el espíritu de igualdad, equidad y responsabilidad mutua. No olvides que los participantes en la cumbre asisten de tu parte, los ciudadanos que los eligieron. Asegura que oigan tu voz. Visita townhall.america.gov para ofrecer comentarios, hacer preguntas o para proponer sugerencias. ¿Sabías que más de 900 millones de personas viven en las Américas? La cumbre perseguirá las soluciones para ofrecer una mejor calidad de vida a cada una de ellas.
How are we connected in the Americas? There's a lot more than geographic proximity linking the people of the Western Hemisphere. Although we live in a region of rich cultural diversity, being a citizen of the Americas connects us all. We learn from each other. Study abroad programs facilitate cross-cultural understanding and promote educational opportunities in both the host and home countries. In 2008, the U.S. granted more than 40,000 visas to students from other nations in the Western Hemisphere, and nearly 38,000 students from the U.S. studied throughout Latin and North America in the 2006-2007 school year. All of them now better understand their host country, have a new perspective on their own nation, and are more equipped for future business, government, and social dealings with the rest of the world. While Spanish, Portuguese, English, and French are the most common spoken languages, millions of people speak indigenous languages like Quechua and Quiché. We travel to each other's countries. Tourism throughout the Americas doesn't just foster cultural awareness, it also spurs economic growth. In 2009, tourism in the Americas is expected to generate an estimated $1.8 trillion and employ nearly 36 million people. We work in each other's countries. With close to 40% of all people in the Americas living near or below the poverty level, the freedom to seek legal, productive work across national borders is crucial for the survival and betterment of millions. It's also a major factor in national economies. 7 countries in the region receive 12% or more of their gross national product from the money that these workers send back home. In 2008, Latin American and Caribbean workers living abroad, many in the United States, sent home about $69 billion in remittance money. We trade with each other. Policies and treaties that govern trade in the Americas, like NAFTA and CAFTA, aim to allow greater exchange of goods and services and spur economic growth by creating more job opportunities. U.S. trade with Latin America hit an all-time high of $633 billion in 2008, while exports to Latin America grew 18.5% and imports from the area increased 9%. In this global economy, no country's economy can flourish alone. Economists today believe that protectionism, the policy of restricting trade with the goal of protecting one's own economy, worsened the U.S.'s Great Depression. We are enriched by our varied cultures. There are over 150 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the Western Hemisphere, and U.S. museums alone record 600 million annual visits. From ancient Mayan murals to traditional Surinamese music and Andean ceremonial architecture, the various ways in which people have expressed themselves, and continue to do so, can inform and influence generations to come. We share natural resources. We are connected by the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the land we cultivate. Policies that set environmental standards, partnerships that conserve energy resources, and efforts to exchange technology, research, and best practices help to ensure a cleaner and more sustainable tomorrow. Already, the U.S. and Brazil, who together produce 70% of the world's ethanol, have partnered to advance the research and development of biofuels and to help other countries do the same. Did you know? More than 40 million U.S. residents visit at least one other country in the Americas every year.
¿Cómo beneficiarte de la Cumbre de las Américas? Seas o no una de las personas afectadas directamente por la iniciativa de la cumbre, si vives en las Américas, la cumbre está formando tu mundo para ser mejor. Así es como lo está haciendo. La cumbre protege tus derechos fundamentales. En el 2001, la cumbre adoptó el Fuero Democrático de Interamérica, que define los derechos y las libertades de todas las personas en el hemisferio occidental. Este documento exige que los gobiernos respeten y protejan los derechos sociales, políticos y económicos, como la libertad de no ser discriminados, elecciones justas y el acceso a una educación de calidad. La cumbre apoya a las familias trabajadoras. En Latinoamérica, las remesas o dinero que personas trabajando en el extranjero mandan de vuelta a sus familias representan tanto como una quinta parte de los ingresos nacionales de un país. Por muchos años, se perdieron 15% de las remesas debido a las tarifas de transacción. Una cumbre especial en el 2004 trató este problema y hoy en día esas tarifas han bajado a menos de 5%. Ahora, más dinero del salario que un trabajador gana arduamente, un promedio de $300 más por familia cada año, va a crear mejores oportunidades en su país de origen. La cumbre apoya el desarrollo de la infraestructura. Los proyectos como la construcción, la reparación de las carreteras, el mejoramiento de los aeropuertos y las aerolíneas, la modernización de las telecomunicaciones y el mejoramiento de los servicios de agua y aguas residuales y la construcción y manejo de nuevos hospitales promueven el crecimiento sostenible, generan empleo y luchan contra la pobreza. Durante los 3 años pasados, los proyectos de infraestructura han beneficiado casi 1 millón de personas directamente. El sector privado ha invertido casi $2.500 millones en infraestructura en las Américas desde la cumbre del 2005. La cumbre promueve las oportunidades de la educación. A través de las Américas, la educación juega un papel importante reduciendo la pobreza y promoviendo la igualdad. El entrenamiento de los maestros es crítico a la misión de la cumbre de aumentar el acceso a la educación y aumentar el alfabetismo. Después de que la cumbre propuso mejorar el entrenamiento para los maestros trabajando en las regiones más pobres de Latinoamérica, con la ayuda de $53 millones y 120,000 libros nuevos, más de 20,000 maestros están ahora mejor dotados para enseñar las habilidades de lectura. Los 600,000 estudiantes desfavorecidos que se han beneficiado tendrán más probabilidades de leer y escribir a los 9 años y por consiguiente posiblemente ellos romperán el ciclo de la pobreza. La cumbre patrocina el avance de la salud y el bienestar. Mejorando la asistencia sanitaria es otro elemento crucial para construir una sociedad unida. La cumbre está cometida a los programas que proporcionan una educación nutricional, la atención preventiva y la ampliación de la cobertura a los pobres. Con 3.2 millones de personas en las Américas infectadas con el VIH o el SIDA, la cumbre ha tomado un interés especial en luchar contra esta enfermedad. La iniciativa de los 3 unos fue creada en la cumbre del 2005 para asegurar que todos los países en la región tengan una autoridad que coordine el VIH y el SIDA, una estrategia y un sistema de supervisión. En el 2008, el Plan de Emergencia del presidente de los Estados Unidos para el alivio del SIDA proporcionó el cuidado y la atención a 95,000 personas infectadas con VIH en Haití, que tiene el número más alto de personas viviendo con VIH o SIDA en las Américas. Está enfrentándose al futuro. Un enfoque particular de la cumbre de este año es la seguridad de la energía y de la administración ambiental. Al índice actual, el mundo está previsto de consumir más de 120 millones de barriles de petróleo cada día cuando lleguemos al año 2030. La cumbre tiene el objetivo de aumentar la cooperación para el uso de la energía verde en todos sus aspectos, desde los bicarburantes y el aumento de la eficiencia energética hasta las tecnologías de las energías renovables. Las iniciativas de la Cumbre para el Desarrollo Agrícola, la protección del ecosistema y el manejo de los recursos naturales también asegura un futuro más sostenible. ¿Sabías que 1 de cada 5 personas en el hemisferio occidental hablan portugués?
How can I participate in meeting the Summit of the Americas goals? You don't have to be one of the 34 national leaders attending the 5th Summit to help tackle the meeting's agenda. Every person in the region can get involved. Step 1. Share responsibility for keeping us safe. A critical element to the stability of the Americas is securing the safety of its citizens. In 2008, drug trafficking was responsible for at least 6,000 deaths in Mexico alone. If we share the problems, then we also share the solutions, like providing information and assistance to prevent and prosecute organized crime, the trafficking of narcotics, and drug cartel-related violence, and promoting public programs that offer productive alternatives to a life of crime. Young people can pitch in by staying in school, actively participating in sports and local community life, and refusing to use, buy, or sell illegal drugs or join criminal gangs. Join a local citizens' council or neighborhood watch. If one doesn't already exist, create one with friends and neighbors using social media tools to get out your message. Step 2. Exercise your democratic rights. The success of the 34 democratic countries represented at the summit directly depends on the citizens' involvement. How can you contribute? Volunteer to help register voters and assist with elections. Always cast your ballot and make sure elected officials know your concerns. The Bahamas has the highest voter turnout in the Americas at over 90%. Step 3. Conserve energy. One goal of this summit is to secure access for all citizens to clean, dependable energy. Young people can take a lead in generating ideas, from collecting used vegetable oil and transforming it into auto fuel, to taking part in cutting-edge research at universities throughout the Americas. Even if you're not involved in developing green technologies, you can still pitch in by conserving energy in small but appreciable ways. At home, use fluorescent light bulbs, unplug chargers and appliances when not in use, and don't overcool or overheat rooms. When you're out and about, avoid driving when possible and take mass transit instead. Mexico has pledged to produce more than 25% of its electricity from renewable energy sources in the next 4 years. Step 4. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Another summit theme is environmental sustainability. In addition to taking measures to protect our precious biodiversity and addressing the challenge of climate change, summit leaders support initiatives to protect citizens' health. While the richest among us consume the most resources and generate the most solid waste, it is the poor who suffer the results of environmental degradation disproportionately, often lacking access to clean water and proper sewage. Do your part by reducing, recycling, and properly disposing of your waste. Recycling 1 aluminum can saves enough energy to operate a television for 3 hours. Step 5. Help your neighbors. Get involved with an organization that betters the lives of those around you, such as programs targeting youth, indigenous or minority populations, or the physically challenged. Your work can even influence the summit's agenda. Summit leaders reach out to hear from civil society organizations at special meetings like the Civil Society Hemispheric Forum held in Miami in 2008, which gathered together 120 representatives from 30 countries in the Americas. The forum's recommendations will be presented at the 5th Summit. Check out the calendar of events at summit-americas.org for a list of meetings and forums related to the summit. Step 6. Join the conversation. We want your opinion on summit priorities and how we can achieve them. Visit townhall.america.gov to share your thoughts, ask questions, and hear more from your neighbors across the Americas. Did you know the Summit of the Americas Secretariat offers internships to undergraduate and graduate students in the region? For details, go to summit-americas.org/FAQ.
Dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, present in this auditorium of the Global Foundation for Democracy and Development. Television viewers and webcast viewers from all over the Americas, good morning, or for some, good afternoon, and welcome to this first ever Digital Town Hall of the Americas held in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. We will today be honored by the Honorable Secretary of State of the Government of the United States of America, Mrs. Hillary Rodham Clinton, who will conduct the Digital Town Hall of the Americas as a live web-based discussion in anticipation of the 5th Summit of the Americas to be held as of later this evening until April 19 in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. The objective of this event is to provide an opportunity for Secretary of State Clinton to launch a conversation with citizens from across the Western Hemisphere to discuss the summit's themes of securing our citizens, the future of the citizens, by promoting human prosperity, energy security, and environment sustainability, as well as the situation in Haiti, from where she just arrived yesterday evening. The Digital Town Hall of the Americas is being streamed live on the Department of State's social media hub for the 5th Summit of the Americas, townhall.america.gov, powered by howcast.com, which is a robust information resource that provides a platform for community interaction on summit themes. The content of the Digital Town Hall of the Americas, originating in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, is also being streamed live by our partners, foxnews.com, Huffington Post, AOL, Univision, MySpace, Yahoo News, and Ustream. During this town hall, Secretary Clinton will answer questions submitted through these sites prior to the event, as well as from the local Dominican audience in attendance. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now our great honor to introduce before you with the opening statement of this live Digital Town Hall of the Americas, the Honorable Secretary of State of the United States of America, Madam Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rodolfo Espinal. I appreciate very much your serving as our moderator today. This is an exciting venture here at FUNGLODE, the Global Democracy and Development Foundation, which is hosting us in Santo Domingo. We are connected online from Brazil and Peru to Mexico, Jamaica, and far beyond even our hemisphere. I am personally honored that President Fernandez is here with us. I've had an excellent series of discussions with the President and his ministers. I'm also delighted that Margarita is here as well. I have known Leonel and Margarita for many years. He was very young and I was younger. And it is a pleasure to be with them. I also want to thank your foreign minister, Carlos. Thank you for your hospitality and the great cooperation that we have. And again, Monsignor Nunez, who I was with earlier from the Pontifical Catholic University, mother and teacher, for the excellent education leadership, and the Minister of Education with whom I toured the Rosa Duarte School. This digital town hall seems particularly fitting to hold here in the Dominican Republic on the eve of the Summit of the Americas in Trinidad and Tobago. Here in the Dominican Republic, I feel very much at home. We are linked by geography and history, by common values and cultural heritage. And now we are finding new and innovative ways to engage one another, expand our dialogue, create new partnerships, solve the problems that we face together. As someone who had the great honor of spending 8 years representing New York in the United States Senate, I feel very close to this part of our world, and in particular, I think of the Avenue of the Americas in the middle of New York City. It has monuments honoring Latin American leaders, a square named for Juan Pablo Duarte, the great Dominican who helped this nation achieve its independence, and whose sister, by the way, Rosa, started the school that I visited earlier. As you travel across New York and America, you will find the influences of the Caribbean and Central America and South America in bookstores and bodegas, in films and fashion, in reggae and salsa and merengue. You will hear the sounds, you will eat the foods, you will smell the smells, you will watch baseball and cheer on so many major league players from Latin America. My point is that whether we are from North America, Central America, South America, or the Caribbean, we are all Americans, and we are of the Americas. We may speak different languages and have some different customs. We have different historical experiences, but we share this home, this hemisphere, and a future that will be what we decide to make it. I will be meeting President Obama at the summit. This marks the first time that a Caribbean nation has hosted the summit, and we are grateful to Prime Minister Manning and his government for their hard work to make this a success. This will be the first regional meeting in the world since the G20 in London. Leaders there pledged $1.1 trillion in resources for nations that were the hardest hit by the global recession. This summit, upcoming today, and the work we do in its wake, presents an opportunity for us to further a recovery that reaches all of the people of the Americas. In Port of Spain, President Obama and I will share that the United States is eager to listen to the ideas and concerns of our friends, partners, and allies, but we are committed to working with you to keep our people safe and secure, to protect and harness our natural resources, and to widen opportunity and prosperity. To achieve the shared prosperity we seek, we must integrate our commitment to democracy and open markets with an equal commitment to social inclusion. Rather than defining economic progress simply by profit margins and GDP, our yardstick must be the quality of human lives. Whether families have enough food on the table, whether young people have access to schooling from early childhood through university, whether workers earn decent wages and have safe conditions at their jobs, whether mothers and fathers have access to medical care for themselves and their children, so that children dying before adulthood is a rarity, not an accepted fact. And whether every person who works hard and takes responsibility has the promise of a brighter future. Over the past 15 years, the rise of democracy and free markets has unleashed the potential of people across our hemisphere. It has ushered in new opportunities for economic and political progress, higher wages, rising school enrollments, healthier populations, citizens freely choosing their leaders are now hallmarks of this dynamic region. At the same time, the global economic downturn threatens to erode these gains. What was already an unacceptable gap between rich and poor in Latin America, the greatest gap of any region in the world, is expected to widen as exports decline, credit tightens, family incomes level off, remittances dip, and growth rates slow. And the impact will be most acute for those on the bottom rung of the ladder of every society: the poor, the young, women. As tempted as we each may be to withdraw inward in the face of economic challenges, it is precisely in such moments that we must extend a hand outward. The failures and fortunes of every nation in our hemisphere are bound together, and so is our progress. With this in mind, the Obama administration is seeking a 17% increase in U.S. investment in Latin America and the Caribbean this year, even amidst our own economic hardship, because we think it is both the right thing to do and the smart thing. It is a down payment on the future we can build together as partners in so many areas, from renewable energy to job creation. There is so much to talk about, but today I want to focus on just 3 areas where our work as partners can address the human costs of the global recession. As we take on these challenges, we must remind ourselves that in our diverse hemisphere, one size does not fit all. We need to look at the unique needs of each country and shape our efforts to meet those needs in a spirit of openness and cooperation. First, a principal area of investment must be education. As I said earlier this morning at the school, that is the linchpin of economic progress. The United States will invest $30 million in education projects in the region. While enrollments have swelled throughout our hemisphere, too many young people still don't complete their studies, or they're not benefiting from the quality of education they richly deserve. This is true also in parts of the United States where students have lagged behind in math and science achievement, and in countries in Latin America where academic performance needs to improve. Today, as we are speaking in this beautiful setting, 22 million young people in our hemisphere do not study or do not work. They need training and skills to get a job and earn a living. There are, however, solutions at hand. And what we want to do in our new administration is look for the best practices everywhere. Look across boundaries. Ask people, what is working for you? We want to adjust American aid programs so that they are furthering what works, not just doing the same thing over and over again. If you look at programs in Mexico, if you look at programs in Brazil, similar efforts in Chile, Colombia, and Peru, governments pay allowances to poor families to keep their children in school. They take them for regular medical checkups. Millions of children are in school as a result of these programs in Mexico and Brazil alone, and the dropout rate is expected to decline. The success of these programs has even led New York City to devise a similar program of its own based on the Mexican model. When I was in Mexico with President Calderon, I told him that we wanted a reciprocal and respectful relationship. We had much work to do together, and the United States thought we had things to learn. And I talked to him about the example of New York City borrowing a concept that was designed and implemented in Mexico. I'm pleased to announce that the United States will host a conference to launch the Inter-American Social Protection Network. This network will bring together stakeholders from across our hemisphere to highlight best practices and new approaches. We should not be reinventing the wheel. We should be learning from each other. We should be borrowing the best ideas, successful programs, and then putting them to work right here. Earlier today at the school, I announced that the United States will add $12.5 million to a successful program we pioneered right here in the Dominican Republic, a program to enhance teacher training, to work on school curricula and supplies in mathematics and in language instruction, to help with school governance. This program is proving to be, in partnership with the Ministry of Education here, such a success that we're not only expanding it to 450 schools in the Dominican Republic, but we want the Dominican Republic to serve as the model for the expansion of this program throughout the region. The end goal of these efforts is to prepare our citizens to compete in the global marketplace, to secure good jobs, to lead productive lives. As diverse as our countries may be, people across the Americas yearn for the same thing: a decent job, a fair wage, the ability to hold their heads up as they provide for the safety and security of their families. And that leads me to the second challenge I want to address, the challenge of food security. I was in Haiti yesterday. You know that the crisis in food access and cost was a very difficult political challenge for the government there. As the global economic crisis deepens, the poor face survival challenges. For some of us, it means we don't take a vacation, or we don't buy a new TV, or a new car. But for many people through our hemisphere and around the world, it means the difference between food on the table or nothing at all. Our hemisphere produces bountiful harvests. This is a very fruitful region of the world. But in places of extreme poverty where people subsist on less than $1 a day, hunger stalks them. It malnourishes children. It stunts growth and mental development. The consequences of hunger show up in homes, workplaces, and schools. We have seen the effects of malnourished people too weak to work, chronically hungry children struggling to learn. So food security is not only a source of suffering, it is a direct threat to economic growth and global stability. Based on President Obama's initiative announced at the G20 conference to double food assistance, the United States will be providing nearly $100 million in food assistance to countries most affected by hunger in the Western Hemisphere. But our goal must be to reach the roots, the causes of food insecurity. There's an old proverb: yes, alleviate hunger by giving someone a fish, but alleviate long-term hunger by teaching them how to fish. What we must do is to build up the means of sustainable production and distribution. For this, we must harness the power of agriculture to reduce hunger and drive economic growth. I can give you two examples. In the 1980s, as recently as then, Haiti was self-sufficient for food. It even exported. Today, it imports food. And anyone who has, as I have, flown across this great island, going from Haiti to the Dominican Republic, you see starkly the erosion, the lack of trees, the lack of cultivatable land, and then you cross the border and you see green. We can look at Brazil and its success through investments in agricultural research and entrepreneurial farming to see the possibilities. Through our collective efforts, we can bring to bear technical assistance, research and technology, education and training to increase agricultural productivity and access to markets, to reduce food insecurity. This is one of our goals throughout the hemisphere and in particular in Haiti. And it's one of the areas that we are going to look to partner with the Dominican Republic in helping to achieve progress. The third area is perhaps the most fundamental of all. It is hard for people to escape poverty or fulfill their potential when they are not physically safe in their homes and neighborhoods, their schools, their workplaces, or on the roads traveling for commerce or pleasure. So none of the advances that we make can be achieved without improvements in public safety and efforts to stem all forms of violence, including violence in the home. We all think about the violence that the drug traffickers bring with them, and this must be our highest priority. The United States must work to reduce demand for drugs and stem the flow of guns and drug profits traveling from our country for use in the drug trade. To that end, President Obama recently announced measures to ensure that our country is doing all we can along the Mexican border. In Mexico, when I had the privilege of visiting, I announced that the United States was pledging additional resources to support training, equipment, and other means of bolstering President Calderon's courageous struggle against the drug traffickers. This is part of the Merida initiative to improve security in Central America, $875 million commitment over 2 years. As we do more in Mexico and Central America, however, we know we face threats in the Caribbean. I had discussions about this with both President Preval and President Fernandez. That is why we are planning a strategic security dialogue with the Caribbean countries to confront rising crime, illicit trafficking, and border security issues like disaster preparedness. The organized criminal networks operating throughout the hemisphere are adapting, and we must adapt as well. We have a very high proportion of young people in Latin America and the Caribbean. These young people are on the front lines, as those watching us today on the internet are, for online civil society. And I believe the young people of this hemisphere have untold power to stop the drug trafficking that goes on, that undermines their communities, their safety, intimidates and corrupts governments and institutions. In Mexico, I announced that the United States will support a summit, the Alliance of Youth Movements, to connect young people working to end violence throughout Latin America. We can all learn from the example of Colombia, where an unemployed 33-year-old engineer, armed with his laptop computer, was able to organize the largest public protest in history against the drug cartels and diminish their power. People talking to one another across the internet, saying, enough, we will not take any more of this, coming together, intimidated the drug traffickers. This is something that we can do and empower across our hemisphere. And it engages people at all levels of society, of all backgrounds and groups. All you need is to be able to log on, to be part of civil society. And it's not only with respect to drug traffickers, but also domestic violence, local criminality, corrupt public officials. We need to be sharing information that comes to the attention of alert and active citizens. Now, these three areas are just a part of our broad shared agenda. There are so many opportunities for us to work together and to learn from one another. In Port-au-Prince yesterday, in meeting with President Preval and Haitian leaders, I listened to what they need to help their country recover from the combined devastation of 4 hurricanes last year, plus the global recession. Earlier at the Haiti Donors Conference in Washington, I announced that the United States will offer non-emergency targeted assistance to help Haiti regain its momentum. We need to rebuild their infrastructure and create jobs and enhance security. This is in the Dominican Republic's best interests, in the interests of the people of Haiti and the United States and the entire Caribbean region. In the 15 years since my husband first hosted the very beginning of the Summit of Americas process in Miami, our world has become more connected and interdependent. We live in a globalized society. It shrinks distance, it collapses time zones, it erases borders, it transcends oceans, it integrates people from every country and every continent through media, travel, trade, and popular culture. Now, while some bristle at the challenges this new global landscape presents, it also offers unprecedented opportunities for cooperation, collaboration, and fresh approaches to solving problems from extreme poverty to climate change, from drug trafficking to trade. I see that at work right here in the Dominican Republic. I asked President Fernandez earlier today to work with us and other leaders in Central America and the Caribbean to be a bridge so that we can begin to build that bridge to the future, to a better tomorrow. Our leaders are essential for that process, but it is people who will decide what progress we make. It is people who will either be complacent or active, people who will be acquiescent or protesting of what they see as unfair conditions or poor governance or corruption that literally takes food from their tables and undermines their futures. I want to see a hemisphere in which, working together, we give every single boy or girl the chance to live up to his or her God-given potential. That is our promise, and that is our hope. And I look forward to working with you to achieve it. Thank you very much. Well, Juan, as you probably know, earlier this week, President Obama announced the most significant policy changes toward Cuba in decades. And we are continuing to look for more productive ways forward in dealing with Cuba because President Obama and I and the administration view the present policy toward Cuba as having failed. You are familiar with President Obama's view that engagement is a useful tool to advance our national interests and the goals of promoting human rights and democracy and prosperity and progress. And I don't know if Juan, who I hope is watching and listening to us, knew that earlier today Raul Castro made some comments which we have seen. We welcome his comments, the overture that they represent, and we're taking a very serious look at how we intend to respond. So I'm very aware of the point of Juan's question about how both sides need to address the differences that exist between us, and we see Raul Castro's comments as a very welcome overture. I am very concerned about the substance of Pedro, is that Pedro's question? Because I think he accurately describes the dangers that we confront right now. However, I believe that the collective action taken at the G20, the pledge of $1.1 trillion, the emphasis on protecting vulnerable populations, has made a very strong statement of commitment by the major economies in the world. We are going to work very hard at the Summit of the Americas on the follow-up work coming out of the G20. We're also working very hard under President Obama's leadership to get our own economy working again, to get it to recover so that we can contribute to prosperity in the region. We will guard against protectionist measures and trade barriers, and we think every country should. I mean, it's natural in a time of such economic insecurity for people to look inward, but we can't afford that. The way we will get this world back working and producing prosperity and jobs and rising incomes is if we stay open with one another. And we have called on the Inter-American Development Bank to maximize lending at this time. We have to restart the flow of credit in our hemisphere. I know that Luis Alberto Morales, the president of the IDB, will be at the Summit of the Americas, and we've got to take collective action within our own hemisphere. And then, of course, we have to put into place regulations that prevent this from ever happening again. That is something that will be critical. But let me just add one other point. Even as we deal with this crisis, we've got to think about the future. That is why we think it's so important to invest in clean, renewable energy, to take action against climate change, to invest in education, even when times are as tough as they are. because that will set us up so that when the recovery happens, we're not behind where we were when the crisis hit. So part of what we are hoping is that as countries think about what each can do, investing in clean renewable energy is a win-win. It puts people to work, and it cuts energy costs over the long run. Dealing with the effects of climate change, reforesting areas. I think of Haiti again. I mean, reforesting the watersheds in Haiti will save Haiti money if we can figure out a plan to be able to do that. So we have to make investments today that will pay off tomorrow. Well, we hope that President Obama and my presence at the summit will clearly illustrate the change in American policy. We have only been in office a short time, but we have tried very hard to illustrate clearly the change in direction that we are pursuing. And this is an important opportunity for us to address some of the major issues that confront our hemisphere. You know, we all face these drug trafficking, insecurity, lawlessness issues. We face poverty, social inclusion problems, inequality. We face energy and climate change challenges. We face economic and other difficult issues that have to do with prosperity and security and sustainability. So we are eager to listen and to consult, and we want to be sure that we come out of the summit with some very specific plans. It's important to use this summit, even at this time of economic downturn, to renew our commitment to shared prosperity, to good governance and the rule of law, to working together in partnership, and that's what we intend to do. Well, let me say that first of all, the United States, with the new administration, has recognized our responsibility as the largest historic emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. This is an abrupt change from the prior administration. It enables us to take the problem of climate change and sustainable development seriously and begin to address it. Secondly, President Obama is committed to pursuing domestic legislation that will equip the United States to play our role in combating greenhouse gas emissions. In the stimulus package that President Obama introduced and was passed, we have a lot of money set aside for renewable energy to begin becoming more energy efficient, to refit, retrofit houses and commercial buildings, to weatherize them, to take what are long overdue steps to begin to do our part. We also are looking at an economy, a wide approach with a cap and trade system that we think makes a lot of sense, that would enable us to reduce our emissions significantly by, we hope, 80% by 2050. Thirdly, we are very actively engaged in the international arena. There will be the Summit on Climate Change in Copenhagen at the end of this year. The President and I jointly appointed a special envoy for climate change. He's working with his counterparts around the world. We're going to do everything we can to get an agreement that includes everybody. Nobody can be left out. There may be different requirements and maybe different timetables for developing countries than for the developed world, but everybody must be in the agreement. And we've had very productive conversations with a number of nations, from China to Russia to the European Union and beyond. But let me just say a word about some of the steps that can be taken by countries in this hemisphere. We've got to stop the destruction of the rainforest. The destruction of the rainforest is a double whammy. It reduces our capacity in the world through what has been referred to as the lungs that the rainforests represent, to absorb carbon dioxide. And the substituted uses of the land, primarily for agriculture, emit more greenhouse gas emissions. So we have to do more to figure out how to protect these very precious resources that are within national boundaries but have global consequences. We also have to do more to help all of us become energy efficient. The cost of electricity, however it is generated, is a significant drain on both family and government resources. How do we get more energy efficiency? We believe in the United States that we could go a long way toward meeting our global goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions if we were more energy efficient. No new source, no new generation, but just use more efficiently what we currently have. So we will be discussing this at the summit. We're going to be looking to work with our partners in the region to chart a clear path toward a low-carbon economy for the future. And the answer to all those questions, Susanna, in Argentina is yes. We do intend to be a strong, effective partner on behalf of education. I mentioned earlier in my remarks and in response to one of the prior questions that we believe in education. We have invested in education in the region. We want to make sure that our investments are as effective as possible. USAID programs have focused on strengthening primary education. I saw that in action today at the school I visited. And we want to do more to take best practices. Two other programs that I would mention, because they'll be part of what we look at when we have our summit meetings, is there's a program in Jamaica called Expanding Educational Horizons that works with families to try to help families educate their own children and to help schools that have child-centered learning programs. You know, a child's first teachers are that child's parents. And we have to do more to help parents understand both the value of education and to feel that they have something to teach their children. I worked for years in a program that I learned about in Israel that helped train mothers, illiterate mothers, who had never been to school. They were mostly immigrants to Israel from Ethiopia and other African countries, and they were given skills to teach their own children, very basic skills that paid off once they got to school. The program in Jamaica has proven results in literacy and better mathematical skills. There is a program in Mexico that I have seen the results of, where we help young people get better trained as teachers. And of course, the SEED programs, where we try to bring more people together to universities so that they can get training. We want to do all of that. And I think it's important that we hear from people who are watching us and following this online, as well as here in the audience, what works? What have you seen? Because too often in education we go from fad to fad to fad. We don't take enough time to let something take root and actually bear fruit. Somebody has a new product to sell, everybody doesn't want to be left behind, but there is no substitute for a well-trained teacher interacting with a child encouraged to learn by that child's family. That's where the magic takes place. And so we have to do more to help train our teachers and prepare them and provide them the equipment and materials they need. And we have to do more to change the culture, the mindset in a lot of families, so that children are encouraged to learn, encouraged to do well in school. They're rewarded for that. And I think that we'll find some very positive programs that we can help expand and that the United States stands ready to support. Rodolfo, thank you so much for moderating it and asking the questions. I appreciate you. Thank you all very much.